So welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we've got a lot to cover. We've had red cards, we've had players scoring against their former clubs, and we've got managerial sackings to talk about along with last minute goals. Following on with that, we've also got some score predictions for the Championship. We've also got some more score predictions for the Premier League and the League One playoff semi-final second leg. So we've got a lot to cover in today's video, where if you get any of these score predictions right, your comment will be included in my score predictions episode. And speaking of your comments, I will include them on the screen right now. If you got a correct score prediction, well done, James and Dark Knight 13. You're the only two that got a correct score prediction from the Championship and the Premier League. James, you managed to win and get the most correct score predictions by getting 3 correct predictions. Your channel will be on the eye icon up there. Well done, James. And following from that, the Lexus Hall of Fame now looks like this. Dark Knight 13, with that one correct prediction, you're now in pole position. I had a pretty good weekend. I got 2 correct score predictions, which was actually the first 2 games of the Championship, Charlton and Millwall, and Derby and Nottingham Forest. So quite proud of myself for that one. But if you guys want to see more Championship content, please make sure you do give this video a like. It would be tremendously appreciated. If you haven't done, please subscribe to the channel. If you're new around the channel, welcome to the channel. We're on 154 subscribers at the moment, so let's try and get to 200 subscribers as soon as we can. And if you haven't done, please share the channel. It really does help. But without any further ado, let's talk about what we saw in Matchday 41 of the Championship. So Friday's game saw Millwall pick up a 1-0 away victory, and I think it was a little bit deserved. In terms of these two teams' play overall, from what I did see, it was 2 tight defences going up against each other. Both of these teams don't like to have a lot of the ball. Both of these sides have had most of their wins without having the ball. They did have a load of chances. Thomas Hemid was a continuous threat for Charlton, but Cordy Bond had a one-on-one chance where he should have done a little bit better from that. Millwall also had chances as well. Jed Wallace had a good chance following Ryan Woods putting a sublime pass to him, but Dylan Phillips made a terrific save from that. It looks like Gary Rowell has set them to be in a new formation of 5-3-2, and actually I think it works. It really improved their defensive stability, and eventually one defence cracked and Charlton conceded their first goal after the restart. It was following a fast break. Conor Mahoney charged forward. It was a great save by Dylan Phillips, but he parried the ball straight to Jake Cooper, who hit it at the net for goal, and that made it 1-0 to Millwall. Charlton are not quite safe yet, but if you're technically looking at the table following Wigan's 12-point deduction, they are 5 points away from the drop zone, so they're not in a bad position, but I still think they do need to pick up points to guarantee their survival. As with Millwall, I don't think they're quite out of the playoff picture as of yet, but of course, they have had a setback. They are 5 points away from Cardiff. Looking at the run they have Middlesbrough at home, Hull away, Blackburn at home, Queen's Park Rangers away, and Huddersfield at home. So actually, they have a pretty nice run in if you're comparing other teams' run-ins. So 5 winnable games for Millwall, and I think they cannot afford to drop any more points if they want to try and get into the playoffs. The events saw the East Midlands derby share the spoils with a 1-1 draw. Was it deserved? I'm not too sure, although what I will say, I think Nottingham Forest started off really well. Joe Lolly managed to get the goal. Could Ben Heyman improve his position and maybe dived a bit better? Regardless, it's a fantastic go by Joe Lolly. Lewis Graben had many opportunities but just couldn't hit the target. He didn't have his scoring boots on today. Thiago Silva also hit the post where I think maybe he was a little bit unlucky. He didn't get it on target. But with Derby getting most of the ball, eventually they're going to make the dominance count. And in true Derby fashion, there are some ugly scenes. Martin Waghorn got a straight red card by fouling Ryan Yates. Following a foul from Joe Worrell, Wayne Rooney had a last minute free kick in the 97th minute. He whips in that free kick. It's not well dealt with by the defence. Brice Samba, who probably should have caught it, dropped it. Evans tried to shoot it on goal, but it was cleared off. But Chris Martin gets a header to it, and despite trying to clear it, it's a goal, and that made it 1-1, a last minute goal and a red card in this game. Derby are a little bit more adrift from Cardiff, so they've lost the pace a little bit. Having said that, Derby do have to play Cardiff at the Cardiff City Stadium 3 games time. I think that game's going to be a very deciding factor to see who gets in the top 6 at the end of the season. And the fact that Derby have managed to get into that position following that in December time they were 18th place, it's an unbelievable turnaround, and I think Wayne Rooney has had a big contribution to that. As with Nottingham Forest, they missed a chance to briefly go 3rd place, but following that they dropped points. They've moved further apart from Fulham and from Brentford. I think automatics is a too far stretch from them. What they need to do now is to make sure they have a full fit squad so that they are ready for the playoffs. Then we saw Fulham and Josh Onumar pick up a 1-0 home victory against Birmingham, but my gosh, did they have to wait for it. Fulham had 77% of possession. However, they did not make use of it well in the first time, because I have to say, Birmingham, I think, were the better side. Jeremy Bella was so threatening down the left-hand side. Jude Bellingham had a couple of chances. He had a shot which was saved. He also had a header which crashed against the crossbar as well. Player who recently signed for Borussia Dortmund didn't score any goals there. I was interested to see if he was going to play more this season, but looks like he's still going to get game time, which I have to praise his attitude for. Fulham were a much better side in the second half. Anthony Knockaert, even Carinera all tested Lee Camp. In the 95th minute, good things come to those who wait. Mark Roberts was absolutely terrific in this game, managing to head the ball away. Probably one of the best players on the pitch, but unfortunately his tough defence didn't pay off when it was needed. Birmingham's lack of game management cost them. Josh Onomah, unpressured by the defence, shot it cleanly, and that is how Fulham got their 1-0. I think they have definitely secured playoffs. I think just like Forest, they've got to make sure that players like Mitrovic do not get silly suspensions, that they have all their players fit so that they can fight for the playoffs. As with Birmingham, they don't have a lot to play for. They're going to be a mid-table side, but I don't think they're going to be relegated following their position. Then we saw the stinker of this weekend. Huddersfield 0, Preston 0. We only had one shot on target in the entire game, which was from Lewis O'Brien about 30 yards out, trying to punt the ball, but it was an easy, comfortable save for Declan Rudd. Preston definitely had better chances. Scott Sinclair had two pretty good chances, one of them being one-on-one with Jonas Sotoway. Should have done better, but he didn't even hit the target. He hit it wide. I was expecting Preston to be, I don't know, a little bit more clinical and a lot more determined to win following their poor form recently. I thought following their dominance they would try and get one goal and then try and keep in the race for the top six, but following this I'd think it's impossible for them to get in the top 6 now, in my opinion. As with Huddersfield, it could be a very valuable point actually. In terms of their running, they've got an intriguing home game against Reading, then home versus Luton, which I think is a big game, away to Sheffield Wednesday, home to West Brom, and then away to Millwall. So they've got two pretty tough games in the end, but they do have a home game against Luton, which I think is essential that they win that. I think what Preston need to do, get some goal scorers and build on from their defence this season, because their defence has not been that bad, it's been their goal scoring that's let them down. Then from 0 goals to 5 goals in the game, we saw a bonkers result happen in Kenilworth Road. Luton 0, Reading 5. I've got a lot to chat about in this video. Luton's heaviest home defeat this season. Reading started well. Slugo already had to carry the shot cross along the goal, where Mate practically had a free goal in front of him. Dan Potts managed to clear his shot off the line. Following this, Luton responded well, and Luton almost scored a goal of their own. Isaiah Brown, who looked like he needed a toilet more than anything, managed to execute a cross onto James Collins, but his header crashed against the crossbar, and I think following from that, Luton's heads just dropped, because then Reading were in no mood to play around. They wanted to make business in this game. Yaku Mate scored the first goal. John Swift, who was really good in midfield, drove forward, applying it to Puskas and then to Yaku Mate, free of space, managed to shoot it past Simon Sluga. 1 minute later, Luton's chances of surviving really took a hit. Jared put a cross in, Sluga really poor to try and deal with it, who had a man for match winning performance against Leeds in midweek. Did a really poor mistake there, although Matty Pearson had the chance to clear it, but he didn't clear out. He cleared it straight at Mate, who followed up with another goal, so he scored his second goal in 2 minutes. That made it 2-0 to Reading. By the time it got to 3-0, Luton's defence just turned to melted chocolate in terms of their defence. Simple pass from Tyler Blackett and a little dribble from Ajaria managed to find Yaku Mate with a lot of space. He scored his third and his hat-trick. That made it 3-0. Yaku Mate's first ever senior hat-trick in his career, which is absolutely unbelievable for him. In the second half, Reading were continuing to score. John Swift's long ball managed to find Michael Morrison, who headed it to George Puskas, who headed it in the net. That made it 4-0. And then the game ended by 5-0 with Mate getting his fourth. It was the first time someone scored 4 goals away from home since Ross McCormack did, where he was in Leeds United. You may remember that, Leeds fans. Luton did have chances, but defensively they were an absolute shambles, absolutely contradicting their defence's setup in their first 4 games in the restart. So it's quite puzzling to all of a sudden now concede that many goals. Luton are technically only 4 points away from safety. They've got some really key games coming up. They have Barnsley at home, where I think if they don't win that, I think Luton will get relegated. Huddersfield away, home to Queen's Park Rangers, away to Hull, and ended with a home game versus Blackburn. Personally, I think that's the nicest running that I've seen with all the teams I've spoken about so far. Luton, it's in their hands if they need to survive. They've got to hope that Hull and Middlesbrough don't pick up points as well. As with Reading, it was a very bizarre performance, especially if they've got nothing to play for, but they responded well to their poor start from the restart. Their first win since the restart started, an unbelievable performance, an emphatic performance. Another team that looked like they fixed their defence but now is back to square one is Barnsley. They conceded 4 against Stoke City, who responded very well to their 3-0 battering against Wigan Athletic. Stoke flew through the traps in the 8th minute of the game. Sam Klukas delivered a corner and Sam Vose practically had a free header. No one was challenging him. That made it 1-0 to Stoke. Their second goal definitely could have been avoided. Matt Anderson had a header, but it was really poor. James McLean managed to nick it off him, squared it to Tyrese Campbell, who had an easy shot on goal, where obviously he wasn't available against Wigan, so maybe he's such an important player for Stoke City, Tyrese Campbell. Stoke just made the game look so easy when they got their third. Tyrese Campbell managed to score again. It was from another corner. Barnsley were caught napping. Campbell receiving a very low corner, practically had a free shot on goal. That made it 3-0 to Stoke. Barnsley did have chances, but Jack Butland definitely had a fantastic response to his howler he made against Wigan. Barnsley's fourth, like many goals that they've conceded in this game, could have been avoided. Williams had a poor clearance. Anderson once again doesn't head well, lacks awareness. Tom Ince managed to receive the ball. He was unpressured by the defence and he managed to score. That made it 4-0 to Stoke. Both sides are not safe as of yet, but Stoke are definitely in a more favourable position following that they look like that they're technically 5 points from safety. Barnsley, on the other hand, have got a lot of work to do. Looking both of these sides' final 5 games, they almost have an identical run-in. Both of these sides still have to play against Leeds. Both of these sides still need to play against Brentford. But Stoke as well, they also still need to play against Nottingham Forest. Stoke have a really tough run-in at the end of the season. So I think this win was definitely pivotal and vital for their survival hopes. Barnsley definitely have more winnable games than Stoke do. So as I said with Luton, I think it is in their hands to try and survive. 3 points from safety is not an impossible gap to breach. We'll see if they can do it. Very saw Leeds take one step closer to the Premier League with a 3-1 away victory against Blackburn Rovers, and I have to say it was quite a close game actually. Leeds controversially took the lead quite early on with Patrick Bamford, who did well to stay on side and got a shot past Walton. Pass from Click was good though, but did he foul Lewis Travis in the build-up? For me, I think he did. I think Leeds are a little bit lucky with that goal. But following the injustice, Blackburn responded very, very well and probably should have scored 2 goals. Sam Gallagher had a very good opportunity, one-on-one with Meslier, but his shot wide of the goal. Any other day he would be scoring there. Lewis Hodby also had a great strike, which came off the post, so he's quite unlucky not to score that. But following Blackburn missing their chances, Leeds had punished them. They had a free kick in a fantastic position and Calvin Phillips stepped up, scoring one of the best free kicks in the Championship ever this season, not just this week. Christian Walton probably could have improved his positioning for that goal, but it's a fantastic free kick. Top left corner of the goal. Calvin Phillips' first goal since October. Would you believe? Phillips came from 0 to 0 very quickly in the second half, where he conceded a dangerous free kick for Blackburn. Adam Armstrong took the opportunity and scored another terrific free kick. Meslier couldn't do anything about that one. However, having said that, Leeds United pushed all their men forward and eventually got their third. It's a great strike by Matthijs Click, but Walton could have done better with that. Once again, he got a palm on it, but he wasn't powerful enough to parry it away. That made it 3-1 to Leeds. They put themselves in a very healthy position to get promoted. They're on 78 points right now, 6 points ahead of Brentford with 5 games left. They are 10 points away, Leeds, for securing automatic promotion. Leeds have a pretty so-so run-in as well. They've got a home game versus Stoke, Swansea away, which I think would be tough, Barnsley at home, Derby away, and then home to Charlton. I think they've got some really nice home games, but they've got some really hard away games. So I could definitely see at least 3 of those games being winnable for Leeds. I think with Blackburn, their chances of getting to the playoffs are kind of disintegrated now. Their 3 defeats in a row meant that they are definitely not going to get in the playoffs. Although they haven't been playing badly in their last 3 games, I think what Blackburn need to do, they just need to build on this season, try and finish as high as possible, because there's some good things that I'm seeing in that Blackburn squad. Very saw Wigan's 7-game clean sheet streak come to an end to the most informed side of the Championship, Brentford, who beat Wigan by 3-0. Let me tell you, they may be 5 points away from automatic promotion, but wow, they are not giving up that easily. They have scored 9, conceded 0 in their 4 games since the restart. Absolutely unbelievable how they're keeping things tight. and how free scoring they've been as well. They managed to keep 5 clean sheets in a row for the first time of their history. Dave Marshall, who hadn't conceded a goal in 684 minutes, eventually was beaten after Mercondes headed back a partial cleared Watkins cross for Ben Rama to score a perfect volley. I'm telling you, this player needs to be in the Premier League this season. Whether that will be with Brentford, we're going to have to wait and see on that. Ben Rama's second was absolutely bizarre to say the least. He was on the left hand side doing a load of skill, and he looked like he tried to ping across, but it was so bizarre. It actually got into the net, an unstoppable strike for Marshall to try and save. Whether that was a goal or a cross, you can decide on that. Either way, Wigan could not deal with the winger. Ben Rama completed his hat-trick following some terrific clean play from Brentford, and we'll have to thank Norgard for the pass he supplied for the assist. Ben Rama shot firm, and that made it 3-0 to Brentford. Wigan looked a little bit deflated following the news, and they just could not build up to Brentford's fight and their pressure. They also lost their heads following Joe Garner had a straight red card from awful challenge on Jan Zambarek. He'll be missing the next 3 games of the season. Just like with Leeds, I think Wigan have got 2 very vital weeks coming up where they could secure what they've been dreaming of, which for Wigan is staying in the league. Wigan have Queen's Park Rangers, Barnsley, Hull and Charlton as their next 4 games. I think they can win all 4 of those games if they can really try. If they get 12 points from those games itself, and especially with the teams around them dropping points, I think Wigan would have saved themselves. It would be an unbelievable turnaround if Wigan can get themselves out of this mess. As with Brentford, they've got a 5-point gap to try and breach from West Brom. I think it's not impossible as of yet, but I think if they don't close the gap in their next 2 games, I think it's just going to get too hard for Brentford to try and get into the automatics, in my opinion. Very different situations between both teams, but I'm really excited to see the outcome of both of these clubs. We then saw Derby winning the 7-side derby by 1-0, which signalled the end of Lee Johnson's reign as Bristol City's manager, where he managed 4 years, actually the longest serving championship manager this year. The statement that Bristol City put out said Lee Johnson was this evening relieved of his role as Bristol City head coach. Current assistant head coach Dean Holden will take over immediately in a caretaker capacity as the club look to appoint a successor. We recognise the huge amount of work Lee has put in the last 4.5 years to move his club forward. However, success in football is ultimately judged by results, and Lee position and the board believes that a change of management is needed. With the game overall, chances were very few for Bristol City. Filip Benkovic and Nakiwell had 2 close chances. Benkovic had a header where he probably should have headed on target. Nakiwell's had a pretty good strike where it was played on side, but Smithy's made a really good save. Despite having less of the ball, Cardiff looked more threatening going forward. Joe Walls had a shot blocked and Mendes Lang had an opportunity near the beginning of the game. Will Volks also had a fantastic opportunity when Daniel Bentley managed to tip the ball over the bar. Benikofobi made a touch where you would see in pub football. To be fair to him, he nearly recovered the ball, but Lee Tomlin nicked it off him, put in a through ball to Danny Ward. Easy goal past Bentley, that made it 1-0 to Cardiff. They've got a mixed bag in their last 6 games, but they are probably going to be the favourites to be in the top 6 following that they've managed to open a gap between them and Derby and the chasing pack. As with Bristol City, now is just trying to steer the ship and to control the rot. Now finally we get to Sunday's games. The first one is Swansea and Sheffield Wednesday. Swansea managed to get a 2-1 home victory where I think it was a game of 2 halves. Sheffield Wednesday I think were definitely the strongest side in the first half. Jacob Murphy was so dangerous down the right hand side. He was continuously a threat to Swansea. Alessio De Cruz and Connor Wickham both had chances, but unfortunately just weren't clinical enough. Alessio De Cruz had a header in the first half, but he headed it over. Swansea had their first opportunity and they scored with it. Connor Roberts had a throw in, but the throw was half cleared. Ayew managed to win it back, supplying it back to Roberts, who gives it to Jay Fulton, who then gives it to Ryan Brewster to smash the ball first time in the roof of the net past Joe Wildsmith. That made it 1-0 to Swansea. And following then on, Swansea looked like that they were going to be the team in control. They were given an opportunity to get their second when Adam Reach managed to foul Roberts in the penalty box. They got a penalty. Andre Ayew managed to send Joe Wildsmith the wrong way. That made it 2-0 to Swansea. Sheffield Wednesday were a little bit poor in the second half, although they did not give up that easily. They did manage to get one back. Nuhu managed to score in stoppage time following a fantastic cross by Jacob Murphy, who was continuously being a threat. He got a header. I think Freddie Woodman could have done better with it. That is how the game ended, 2-1 to Swansea. Swansea have a pretty tough run in for top 6. They have Birmingham away, Leeds home, Nottingham Forest away, Bristol City at home, and Reading away. I think Leeds and Nottingham Forest are both going to be pretty tough games for Swansea, but if they could beat both of them, they'll be in a fantastic position to get into that top 6. As for Sheffield Wednesday, just like with Birmingham, they're going to have to try and get into a mid-table position, and if they do get a deduction, they need to pick up as many points as they can. We then saw Queen's Park Rangers pick up their first points since the restart with a 1-0 away victory against Middlesbrough and a clean sheet. We don't see that often with Queen's Park Rangers. Middlesbrough's relegation, for me, I think has intensified a little bit. I know they're 22nd at the moment, but you've got to put in perspective, Wigan should be 24th place right now with their 12-point deduction, so technically Middlesbrough are 3 points away from the drop zone and in safety, so Middlesbrough may be a little bit lucky at the end of the season. Middlesbrough started very well though. Patrick Roberts managed to thread a through ball to Ashley Fletcher, which was well dealt with by Joan Lumley. Queen's Park Rangers should have had the lead 30 minutes in. Johnny Howson gave possession away to Asai Samuel. He managed to set Jordan Hugill through, but he took too long and Stojanovic managed to deal with it. However, 2 minutes later, Jordan Hugill, the local Middlesbrough boy and the former Middlesbrough player, managed to score an absolutely filthy goal. A bit similar to Che Adams' goal against Manchester City, of course by different build-up. It was a beautiful goal and it looked like he injured himself doing it, but I don't blame him. It's a fantastic goal. He managed to dink the ball over Stojanovic, who was off his line. Pace and power, absolutely unstoppable. That was the only goal in the game, and that's how it ended, 1-0. Queen's Park Rangers have secured their survival in the Championship. As with Middlesbrough, they still have a bit of work to do. They've got Millwall, Bristol City, Cardiff, Reading and Sheffield Wednesday left to play. Not the worst sides to play against in their final 5 games. They've just got to keep it tight. And I think following that Barnsley and Luton loss this weekend, I think 50 points is going to be enough to see if Middlesbrough can survive. Let's see if Middlesbrough can achieve that threshold. Then I think we've saved the best till last. West Brom 4, Hull 2. It was a terrific game. It had everything. It had a red card. It had sides continuously attacking each other. It had players scoring against their former clubs. It literally had everything. West Brom increased their chances of managing to return to the Premier League. They got the lead very quickly in the 4th minute in, with Charlie Austin managing to get enough to poke the ball through George Long. That made it 1-0. Although Hull responded very well. Their first goal could have been avoided with Matheus Pereira managing to cross and Kevin Stewart by not controlling it, but Kevin Stewart went from 0 to hero, where following Sam Johnston not defending the corner well, Kevin Stewart managed to get the rebound, and that's how the game was at 1-1. So West Brom had a lot of confidence picking up their first points against Sheffield Wednesday and were continuously scoring. Matheus Pereira, once again a player I need to see in the Premier League, had 3 assists in this game. He got a second assist following a corner. Great looping corner, and Ghazi managed to win a header, completely unstoppable for long. That made it 2-1 to West Brom. Although Hull started very well in the second half, and Manic Wilkes managed to equalise for Hull once again. Hull were not giving up that easily. That made it 2-2. However, it was Hull's former player, Cameron Grzycki, who scored for West Brom, that really dealt the blow for Hull, and they just did not have a final way back. Matheus Pereira's pass to Cameron Grzycki for that goal was absolutely sublime. Honestly, one of the best assists I've seen this weekend. Cameron Grzycki, of course, scored his goal for West Brom, his first against his former club, and he didn't celebrate it, and it's weird to see a player not celebrate with no crowds around. Grady Dean Garner managed to wrap up the scoring, only being on the pitch for 4 minutes, just coming up as a substitute. He dribbles the ball very well. Hull can deal with him. He eventually got enough time and space to shoot past Long. That is how the game ended 4-2. Home games against Derby and Fulham, which I think will be tough. Another home game against Queen's Park Rangers, and away games against Huddersfield and Blackburn. Not the worst running for West Brom to be in a position of trying to be promoted. Hull's mission is to stay up in the Championship, and it's not over yet. They've got a 4-point gap from Barnsley. Their final games involve an away game against Bristol City, home to Millwall, away to Wigan, which I think is a huge game, home to Luton, which is another big game, and a final tough away game versus Cardiff. So if they got to secure their survival, they've got to get results against Luton and Wigan, in my opinion. It's going to be an exciting 2.5 weeks coming up, let me tell you. But there you have it, guys. This is my review of Matchday 41. On the left hand side of the screen right now is the current Championship table. Leeds and West Brom in pole position to be promoted. Luton, Barnsley and Middlesbrough in the bottom 3, but in realistic terms, the bottom 3 should be Barnsley, Luton and Wigan, last place on 38 points. My pick for goal of the weekend is a little bit tough. There's a lot of goals. We had the 2 fantastic free kicks from Calvin Phillips and Adam Armstrong. I want you guys to tell me which free kick was better, Calvin Phillips or Adam Armstrong. But I'm actually not going to give my goal of the weekend to either of them. I'm going to give it to Jordan Hugill's goal against Middlesbrough. It was complete filth. I absolutely love it. Player of the weekend, so many nominees. Mateus Pereira, Said Benrahma are amongst the names that I can give it to. But I think for me, Yaku Mate, 4 goals, his first senior hat-trick, he deserves the player of the weekend. Result of the weekend's tough, there was a lot of high scoring games. I'm going to give my results of the weekend to West Brom 4, Hull 2. End of the video, we now have some midweek games to predict. Let's start off with the Championship. Nottingham versus Fulham, a huge game in terms of trying to get promotion and in the playoff places. I think Nottingham Forest will get a 2-1 home victory. I think they'll be okay against Fulham. Reading Huddersfield, pretty tough. This has 0-0 written all over it, but I'm actually going to edge Reading for a 2-1 victory. Brentford versus Charlton, a huge game for Brentford. I think they need to continue their winning start. Another tough defence in Charlton, but they made Wigan's defence look like melted chocolate, and I think they'll do the same to Charlton. I think it'll be a 2-0 home victory to Brentford. Luton versus Barnsley is a huge game in the bottom side of the table. It is realistically the bottom 2 sides playing against each other, and I think Barnsley are going to get a shock 2-1 away victory. I could see Barnsley winning this game. We then have Cardiff versus Blackburn, huge game. I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. Middlesbrough and Millwall, I'm not too sure. I think they'll share the points. I think it'll be 1-1. West Brom and Derby, another really big game. I can see West Brom winning, but I think Derby have it in them just to continuously fight. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I think it'll be an entertaining game. I think we've got Wigan versus Queen's Park Rangers, big game for Wigan, and I think they'll win. I think it'll be a 2-1 victory to Wigan. Birmingham and Swansea. This is interesting. I think I'm going to say 2-0 away to Swansea. Bristol City and Hull is really tough to predict this one, actually. Maybe Bristol City may have a good reaction, but I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. I think Hull have looked a little bit good lately in terms of scoring goals. They just need to keep their defence tight. Sheffield Wednesday versus Preston could be another 0-0 stinker, but I actually think Preston will respond and get a 1-0 victory. I also predict it'll be a penalty as well. And finally, Leeds versus Stoke, a huge game for Leeds, probably one of Leeds' biggest games this season. I'm going to say Leeds get a 2-1 victory. I think it's going to be a really tight game despite it being at Ellen Road. But if all my predictions came true, this is what the Championship table would look like. Now got Leeds on 81 points, Brentford on 75 points, Cardiff still in the top 6 with 65 points, but Swansea now looking like the team more likely to be in the playoffs with Derby now on 62. And the bottom 3 still consists of Luton, Barnsley and Middlesbrough. To finish off the video, let's predict the midweek games for the Premier League and the second legs of the League One playoff semi-finals. Let's start with the Premier League. Spurs and Everton, which is tonight's game. I'm going to say 2-1 Spurs. I think they can beat Everton. Watford, Norwich, a huge game in the bottom half of the table. I think Watford are going to finally get some wins. I think it'll be a 2-0 victory to Norwich because I think Norwich are a bit dead and buried for me. Crystal Palace and Chelsea, right, I've learned if I don't back Chelsea to win, they win in real life. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say a 1-1 draw. Arsenal-Leicester, huge game this. I actually really hope Arsenal win. And you know what? I think they can. Following their great performance against Wolves, I think if they do the same thing to Leicester, I think it will tame them. I'm going to say 2-1 to Arsenal, and they have a pretty good home record as well. We now have Sheffield United going up against Wolves, a really big game in terms of trying to fight for the Champions League places. I think Wolves will get a 1-0 away victory. Then we have Manchester City versus Newcastle. I think Manchester City will brush Newcastle aside following that they lost. It could even be more than this, but I think it's going to be 3-0 to Manchester City. West Ham and Burnley, big game in the bottom half of the table again. I think West Ham need this win desperately, and I think they will get it. I think it will be a 2-0 victory. What I saw against Newcastle, there was some encouraging signs for West Ham United. Brighton and Liverpool, pretty meaningless game. I think it's going to be a 2-0 away victory to Liverpool. Bournemouth and Spurs, big game for Bournemouth, but I think Spurs will win. I think it's going to be a 3-2 away victory. I can see a lot of goals in this game like it was with Bournemouth and Manchester United. Everton and Southampton. Following that, Southampton have a fantastic away record. I'm going to back them. I think it's going to be 2-1 away to Southampton. Aston Villa, Man United, a huge game for Villa, but I think Man United will win. I think it's going to be a 4-1 away victory, putting Aston Villa in jeopardy. And finally, the League One playoff semi-final second legs. Wycombe Fleetwood, I think it's going to be 2-0 Wycombe's second leg, which would put it 6-1 on aggregate. And Oxford and Portsmouth, I think it's going to be 1-1, matching the first leg result. And I think I'm going to edge Portsmouth through on penalties. I think that's what's going to happen. So there you have it, guys. These are all my predictions for this week and my reaction to Matchday 41 video. If you guys like what you see, please make sure you do give this video a like. It tremendously helps me and it will be very much appreciated. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to this channel. It really does help. And if you can share the channel, it really does make my day. It does help the channel a lot. We're on 154. Let's push for 200 subscribers as soon as we can. But that wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you saw the end of this video. And as always, take care.